Hi, friends, and welcome to Talking with Famous People. Today we're playing Escape to TwFP Island. What will you find on TwFP Island? Some rare species of birds that have evolved very precise skills. One of the birds on TwFP Island can eat introverted intuition. That's its food source. So, you NIDOMs, if you go to TwFP Island, you got to stay out of the jungles because stay in the hotel. You'll be preyed upon by these giant birds that eat your introverted intuition. I was texting. Somebody texted me last night. I think it's Samuel. I'm not sure. I don't have his name on the... I haven't made a contact for him, but... That's some good coffee. I bet you're pretty jealous about that coffee. Anyway, I was texting. He was texting me, and I texted him back. He asked me, what if we're going backwards in time? And I said, well, then this answer will become unprompted. And then he talked about I have to look at my phone. Ethan McDonald says, yesterday you watched C.S. Joseph type in obvious ISFJ as an ENTP. Shocking. Who is an INFP? That girl that C.S. Joseph typed yesterday? I didn't know he put up typing sessions. That opens up to a lot of scrutiny. I'm surprised he does it. I mean, I knew he typed celebrities and stuff. I watched him spend, 30 seconds typing me. It's kind of amusing. Anyhow, welcome to TwFP Island. Here on TwFP Island, we have, yes, there's Tattoo. He says deplane when your plane comes in. And of course, he's long dead. So that, but that's why some of the staff at TwFP Island are the living undead. Or the undead living, you might say. You should just say they're alive. He said he already knew her type within 15 seconds. He just tried to confirm his bias after that for 2.5 hours. Well, I can't say I'm surprised. How reliable is he, as Joseph? He's reliably wrong. I saw you sent me an email, Mackenzie. I haven't looked at it yet, though. Sorry. Yesterday, after I got back from getting my dad from the doctors, I was very tired. I just wanted to go to bed. I wanted to make that video, and then Rachel and I watched a couple of Black Clovers, and I went to bed. I mean, the thing is, I think if How much of the information he puts out is accurate? Well, see, my take on the matter is you either have the foundations right or you don't. If you don't have the foundations right, you may say some things about typology that are accurate or some things that are inaccurate. It's very difficult for me to parse out exactly which things he says are correct or incorrect because I'm not really interested in listening to his videos or anything, long enough to I guess you'd say catalog the good stuff and the bad stuff. But I can tell you that he's terrible typing people. I mean, it's like he'd almost have to be I would think he'd almost have to be doing it on purpose. He's so wrong. The wrongest people in typology are him and DSP. Okay. Those two are completely wrong. You're going to get various other people who have like vaultology and shit like that I don't really know about, and that's bullshit too. And well, okay. And see, this is what I sort of was getting into somewhat in videos I made last night, is that my position is this, that typology, cognitive functions and stuff is best understood as a model of human being that includes all of the attentional matter stuff and nothing else. So in that regard, I would say in order to be correct about typology, you have to understand the mechanics of it, right? So he doesn't understand the mechanics of it really at all. He uses a grid that he applies to typing people and stuff, and so when you say, well, what does it get right or wrong about? Like that statement there. Thank you for giving me an example. That person wears a lot of colors. They must be an extrovert sensor. Well, I mean, that's wrong, of course. So here's the thing is, it may very well be the case that if you were to look around the world, that you would see extroverted people wearing more colors. Maybe if you were to try to do that correlate or something, even if you were to determine that were the case, that by 80% margin, bright colored wearing people are more likely to be extroverts or something. Even if you were to do a bunch of data gathering to determine that, it still wouldn't be a good reason to type somebody something. It's still just a correlate. It could be one piece of a large circumstantial case, but could just as easily be misleading. So because he doesn't use the right approach towards either understanding the I think he might have drawn that from somewhere else. I think he basically drew all of his ideas from somewhere else. In fact, that's one of the ways that he tries to avoid being ideationally accountable, is if you ask him to justify things, he won't give you TI reasons. He will give you TE reasons. He will say, well, I read, and if you push him on it, he'll say, well, you just read the book. As though, look, we're past the stage where we're evaluating whether I'm right or not. He wants to play that, Yeah, he refers to as mentors, right? Well, my mentors of course, all that's consistent with somebody who doesn't care about making his own stuff. Who doesn't care about he doesn't care about doing the parsing himself. So it's like for a TI person, what they think is they trust their own judgment and their own ability to think through what's being said and determine if it makes sense or not, determine if it's legit or not, right? That's caused a big misconception in the world. So because it is true that TI people trust their own judgment way more than they trust anybody else's judgment, even when they should trust the other person's judgment. I told an example the other night. Rachel and I went through Popeyes. I was trying to figure out in my head who the like Benefactor was for ENFJ or something like that. And I was trying to figure that out the same way. I know who mine is, and then I say, well, what's the equivalent for them? I try to figure it out like that. So, but I was having, I don't know, my brain was broken that night or something. I was not being able to figure it out. So I asked, Rachel looked it up. I didn't ask her to, but she looked it up. And then she told me. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I had to deal with the guy at the window, right? All of a sudden. So then when we drove away, I was like, so what did you say it was again? And she told me. And then I had to still sit there and I still tried to figure out to confirm that she was right, even though she had just looked it up. And even though I was having trouble figuring out what it was. So that's a TI user. Now, one of the big problems that's happened in typology is that people mistake that quality for subjectivism. And there's a big misconception that TI people are subjective because they prefer their own judgment over that of other people's. But that's not subjectivity. That's believing themselves to be objective, therefore not needing to outsource the judgment part. Now, unfortunately, only half of the people who believe themselves to be objective in this fashion are actually objective. So, regardless, like an ENFP is the same way. ENFP is going to trust their own judgment way more than they trust other things, although less dramatically than ENTP. But the difference is, the TI types are correct to trust their own judgment about intellectual stuff. FI types are incorrect to trust their own judgment about intellectual stuff. All processing occurs internally. That's the thing. And that's the other thing people forget. Just because we have extroverted functions doesn't mean that any functions occur anywhere other than inside of a human head. So the subjectivity then obviously doesn't refer to the location of the function, nor does it refer to the location of the object of attention, because the object of attention can be either inside of my head. I can think TI stuff through without saying it out loud. Or I can come up with my own TI stuff to think. I come up with my own stuff to TI, or I can TI somebody else's stuff, like I'm TIing Ethan McDonald's thing here. So he says subjective refers to processing that occurs internally. Right. So this is the problem that we have when we're talking about subjective and objective. That's the second problem we have. There's two distinct problems. The first one is that people think because TI users prefer their own judgment over that of experts, that makes them more subjective. But that's not the case at all. And people think, the other thing is that people think that because it's an introverted function, it's subjective. But all functions are inside of you. The attention, the object of your attention is going to be an object of attention, whether it's a physical object or a metaphysical object, whether it's on the metaphysical plane. Didn't you say the ENFP can't read or something like that the other day? They can read, they can't think. That's the problem. It's not a failure to read, it's a failure to think. I do trash ENFPs a little bit because I tell you why. And here's why. It's like they're the most offensive kind of TI polar. They're more offensive than ESFPs. ESFPs are just kind of sad in some sense when they're confused about ideas because they've got no ability to fool anybody. ENFPs are offensive because they can fool people. They can imitate intelligent sounding stuff in ways that fool people. You know, there are major people who do major work in social philosophy and stuff like that who are ENFPs. And they have no business going anywhere near anything like that. Their ideas are terrible. Their justifications are not. Yeah, Ethan McDonald has nailed it. ESFPs are much less offensive in some regard because they don't try to do work that's so dangerous for everybody. It's like when ENFPs are wrong, you get the Iron Curtain. You know, you get the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. Also, C.S. Joseph said, those who speak out loud with their thoughts are extroverted thinkers. What? It's just nutty. And it's like, okay, I was thinking something about this as well. At the end of the day, all evils come down to agenda primacy of some sort. And what I mean by agenda primacy is a prioritization of conclusions over processes. In other words, judges are to blame. You're Mackenzie Hoffman, you are not an ENFP. I want to give you your ENFP immunity stamp. I'm going to stamp it on this sticker you can put on your shirt and go around and so people know you're not ENFP. I mean, it sounds like C.S. Joseph did something unusual last night. I've never heard of him spend a long time typing somebody on camera before. And it sounds like he made a big mistake as well in doing so. When you put your processes open to scrutiny like that, instead of what he normally does, which is sort of half-ass type celebrities going through them real quick, whatever. When you actually put your skills on display, they are open to scrutiny. And anybody can see the guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. If you type that person as an ENTP and she's clearly ISFJ or INFP or something else, or I don't know. But what I will tell you regarding C.S. Joseph is even he and his test that he made couldn't mistype me. I mean, he mistyped me. He mistyped me as ESTP, but his test typed me as ENTP. Interestingly enough, ENTP Rogue, whatever that is. It's like every test I've ever taken, like literally, I don't think I've ever gotten anything other than ENTP. So, I mean, I don't know what good that is, but and I'd like to think that the typology community is not enormous, obviously, and those of us who are actually really into it are even smaller subpopulation. But I do think that within the community, there's a good reason to think that a fair number of people understand ENTP by using me as an example to extrapolate off of. More likely to happen with SI people than NI people. No, ENFPs are not stupid. That's why, okay, look, I mean, I see them as okay, so it's like ENFPs are like speedboats. They are designed to go fast in a place where you can't run into anything. And ENTPs are like motorcycles. We're designed to be very precise in our maneuverings. And so, yeah, ENFPs are speedboats. That's the bottom line. If you want to go on a ride with a lot of words and so forth, go ahead. But be aware that there's no brakes. There's no really steering. It's like you can steer, you go like this, and the boat goes this way or this way or this way. But you're on water, you're floating around. There's nothing solid underneath you. And at the end of the day, if a wall comes up in front of you, the ENFP will just pretend it's not there and crash the boat and continue on the other side of the wall with no boat, pretending to drive until eventually a boat reforms around them somehow. Whereas the ENTP will be left behind at the wall going, okay, no, how do you still think you're driving a boat? TI is to ENFP as democracy is to Kim Jong-un. Totally. Is Chris from Total Drama an ENTP? I don't know what Total Drama is. You would think everyone would get the genealogy question. Well, when we say logical, can we start by defining logical so it's simple that TI tricks are going to understand? Like, no, it's not true. You would think that. All right. Okay, Mackenzie, you'll have to get used to losing those metaphor names around here probably. I just talk about it as being first, second slot, third slot, fourth slot, or dominant tool function. But tool function is kind of metaphor, I guess. The thing is, ENFPs, as a matter of fact, will not be able to get the genealogy questions. ESFPs and ENFPs, if you ask them things like, who is my mother's husband, they'll say, family? Shit you not. I shit you not. That's not a conclusion. So in that instance, Mackenzie, you're just saying an hour is defined as 60 minutes. ENFP would understand that, sure. But an ENFP, if you were to say, if Joe goes to the store for 60 minutes, then Mary will go to the store for 30 minutes. And Mary doesn't go to the store for 30 minutes. What can we conclude? They'd have no idea. No clue. If you were to say to them, those genealogy questions, they can't get them. It's quite striking when you see somebody with TI polar fail to get even this. Who is my mother's sister in relation to me? My mother's sister. It's striking. The polars can be quite striking when you see people display what appears to be a total inability to do something that to you probably seems incredibly easy to do. So, okay, Freddie Forgiato, thank you for bringing up the most important question of all that's been sort of weighing on me, which is, did that lady test positive for 2 polars? If so, in some sense, she falsifies the system, or at least shows that there are exceptions to it, or falsifies the TI polar test, which is let me get back to that, Freddie Forgiato. I don't know how to do. What's so terrible about I don't know how to do? Is there something that comes after the do? I don't know how to do that. So, okay, now did the ENTJ lady test positive for 2 polars? Well, I have been see, she's a very thorny woman to type, because I'm not sure she's SI polar. I think that she tested more TI polar than she did SI polar. But I don't think she's an ENFP or an ESFP. And so I don't know what to do about her. OOOO says he thinks she's an INTJ. That was the other, right. Well, yeah, Clayton articulates other possible things too. Yeah, that's right. So, he says, it would falsify one thing. It could also maybe falsify that one of the tests wasn't measuring a polar, or that both tests were measuring the same polar. That's true. And I think that if any test is going to be falsified as a good polar test, in other words, they're going to have to ditch it as a close to 100% reliable thing, it would be the TI polar test, because it's the most gameable, or not really the most gameable, but the most learnable. Big sneezes for Daily Eric. Big sneezes. I mean, Razor M, I kind of think so. I kind of think so. He's a weird kind of genius. He's kind of savanty in his genius here, fucking sloppy mess everywhere else. But yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely shot an injection of energy into thinking about how to type people, for me. His question, and I get the idea that he's enthusiastic about generating relevant work. That's a very friendly enthusiasm. I totally get that. And I think, I really liked, once I understood it, I liked the concept of having a story that allows you to test both SI and NI polar concurrently, by asking, it has to be fairly long then to do that. I also, a couple other typing question type things that I want to talk about that I like a lot. I really like the concept of, and the, I don't know exactly what it's going to say, what it's going to tell us about somebody's type. And I think this is part of what OOO's problem is that, I really like this question. Why? What does it tell you about typing? I don't know yet, but I really like the question. What are you going to do for if you win a montage year? It's a new question. I asked it of Mackenzie, and I asked it of Lady Pants, whatever her name was. All right, so the trickster function is the ESTJ as their hero function. Well, so trickster is 7. I think trickster's 7. I'm not sure if what trickster is. Hero is dominant. I know that. Trickster is polar. Okay, so if you say the type has the same, has 7th function of the ESTJ as their hero function, well, that would be either an INTJ or an INFJ, right? And the 4th soft function of the INTP, well, then it would be INFJ. That's INFJ. Okay, so yeah, right. Correct. You only need to know 2 functions to know the type. And the 16 types, none of them have the same 2 functions in the same 2 slots. So in other words, there's no 2 types that have NETI. Bipolar. You might say Amy's bipolar. That's funny. If in fact she did test positive for 2 polars, then she'd be bipolar, but spelled without an A. But is that TI or TE? I came to the conclusion, but based on previous knowledge, I already had to reach it. Well, I mean, remembering it's the process. So it's like, I remember that the benefactor type for the ENTP is ESTJ. I don't have to figure it out in my head. So I remember, I know with my SI, all of the inner type relations for my type. But if I try to figure out what's ESTP's benefactor type, then I have to do it in my head. I go, okay, well, let's see. If my benefactor has TESI, that would be my 6-4. So what's the 6-4 of ESTP? Well, that would be TENI. So then the equivalent relationship would be ENTJ for ESTP. Then I'm using TI. I'm using TI to figure out the logic of the thing. Now, if you want to know what a TE approach to this is, Cloud one time gave a good description of how to determine your Your TWFP dual. The TWFP dual it's the dual relationship for socionics for judging types, and it's the mirage relationship in socionics for perceiving types. That's my position on duality. Okay, so he said he had some TE heuristic, like take the first one and flip the attitude, take the second one and meow the meow. Okay, and that was a TE heuristic for how to. That is TE, what I just said. So you see the difference. This is a good question, Mackenzie, because it makes it really easy to distinguish between the two. If I tell you, how do you find your dual, and you go, it's keep just the second letter the same. Keep just the second letter the same. So I'm ENTP, so that means INFJ is my TWFP dual. That's a TE heuristic. I don't have to do any figuring. I just have to apply the rule and say, flip the second letter. I mean, flip everything but the second letter. So for ESTP, that would be ISFJ. In TWFP dual, your dual is ISFJ. Except that rule, that's not the rule, okay? Because if that were the rule, then there would be duals for all the duals would be mirages. But it would be like that. It'd be a rule like that. It'd be so I think that ESFJ is the right type for INTP. So that's flip every letter, right? So the answer is if it's a judger, flip every letter. If it's a perceiver, flip every letter but the second. From the TWFP perspective, then it's like for a judger like ENTJ, you flip every letter, ISFP. For a perceiver like ENFP, you flip every letter but the second, INTJ. So that would be a TE heuristic approach to TI. You don't actually think it through in your head like I did, but you just use the heuristic and rely on that to tell you the answer. And in some sense, all of human development is about turning TI into TE. And you can see it in computers, right? It's like originally people would code. People don't code anymore, really. What they do is they code little bits of code, and then they take modules that have already been coded and put them into things, right? So nobody any longer understands how we get from machine code to this. There's nobody who understands it. There have been so many complicated TI things that have been heuristic down into TE packages that it's not possible for anybody to conceive really how this all works, how the internet works, how computers work and stuff. How is it the fact that I'm able to just talk here? It's so complicated. How does this get from zeros and ones to this is beyond anybody's understanding at this point, because you'd have to unpack so many TE heuristics. ENFPs can perform TE heuristics fine. In fact, I've had ENFPs in debate before who've been successful doing just that, turning everything into heuristics without any logic. Well, if they run this, I run that. They can do one-step conditionals, no problem. If this happens, I will do meow. It's not a difficult thing for them. And so instead of actually going, wait, that doesn't make any sense because they go, oh, they're running a spec. I run this block, and then they read it. That's what they have a coach for. Coach does the thinking, and they're better at organizing themselves than ENTPs. Well, they're better at organizing. Well, it's just as bad, really. They're much more affirmers, too. So ENTPs are natural negators. ENFPs are naturally affirmers, which is they like to have a case that they think is going to be it's going to carry the day for them. Does the beneficiary feel inferior to the benefactor? No. In fact, the beneficiary feels as though the benefactor just isn't getting it. It just doesn't get it on a lot of levels, and vice versa. But the difference is the benefactor is always one step ahead of the beneficiary. So I've been on both ends of the relationship. I've had living with me an ENFJ for a while when I was in Laverne, and I could see both sides as the relationship played out. He kept thinking that I was sometimes I guess like shockingly wrong prioritizing, in the sense that, as an FE NI person, he sees me ignoring NI, and he sees me using selfish kind of limited FE, and he thinks I'm not impressed. I am not impressed with you at all, ENTP. But I'm always one step ahead of him. And the reality is, it's a very humbling relationship. ESTJ is not impressed by ENTP. My dad is not impressed by me. And, it just goes without saying that what happened to that thing I was reading? Did you remove that comment? But my dad is always one step ahead of me. If I'm coming up with some sort of plan or something, and the supervisor is different. You're impressed with your supervisor. You're not impressed by your benefactor. You're depressed by your benefactor, because it's like you think their shit shouldn't matter so much, but it does, and you have to be humble and sort of just accept that you need that you need those benefits, and that that's one of the things that sort of typology allows you to come to terms with, is that the reason this is not because there are particular people involved necessarily. It's like my dad's not the way he is because he's being purposefully TE all the time or something. It's just that's his nature. Supervisor has supervisees Dom as tool, and Polar as Dom. Right. So that's why you were impressed by them, because it's like, so and the other important part of that is 8th slot tool. So INFP has 8th slot TI, which means their TI is good, solid. They can hang with me in theory if they had to in a competition or something. They could, if it weren't timed anyway. They've got FI Dom, which means they're experts at what I'm completely blind at. They're good at what my tool function is. And then their tool function, they're very strong at what my dominant function is. So I've got no meaningful advantages over them. the next thing in my stack, third slot FE, they ignore it. And the fourth slot function of my front stack, SI, they are stronger at it than I am. So they've got me beat on everything, you know? And I find them intimidating. You will likely be intimidated. Impressed is one way to put it. Intimidated is another way to put it. I find INFPs intimidating. It's a strange sentence, an incredibly strange sentence, right? The only people who you will ever hear this sentence from is a small subset of ENTPs who are being honest and understanding themselves very well, you know? I find INFPs intimidating. Who says that? You know? I think if you were to survey the community, most people do find you intimidating. Okay. Well, maybe. I think if you were to survey the community and you were to ask which types are the least, what type is the least intimidating, you'd probably get ISFJ at the top. But it would be interesting to see because, of course, different people find different types intimidating. It's an interesting survey question. I think I might put that up in the community. The community tab is a poll. I mean, the thing about INFPs is if you were to talk about who's kind of objectively intimidating, well, INFPs are not well positioned to willfully be intimidating, right? So INFP is not a type that's well positioned to go in there and say, "All right, you fucks, listen up. We're getting this shit in order and sit the fuck down." You know, it's like when I go and be a classroom teacher, if I was sort of taking over some, like when I was director of kudos and some teacher would call in and I didn't have a class that slot, I would go cover for them, and maybe their class was kind of rowdy compared to my classes. I'd walk right in there and say, "All right, you all need to sit the fuck down." Assuming they were like at least sixth grade or something that gets their attention. And then, you know, that sort of thing is, if you were to ask anybody, well, which type is most likely to do that kind of thing, INFP would be very low on the list. Yeah, seize the frame is right. Of course, usually they didn't try too much around me because it's like I was kids get accustomed to their teachers, and if their teachers aren't very strict, then they get accustomed to that. Sargon's TI, but yeah, I'm pretty sure TI probably. I don't know what type I mean, I didn't enjoy his shit. I made some video about shit on him one time. But could we talk about the difference between ESFJs and ESFPs? They're just massively different. Like, there's no comparison between the two. ESFJs are a type that's very unlikely to be self-aggrandizing, especially about ideation or just in general, really. Whereas ESFPs are very likely to think that they understand things best and that they have some sort of vision to share with people, and it's not going to stand any scrutiny at all, you know. ESFJs, on the other hand, are, you know, in this asshole's guide to 16 personalities, that video I made one time, I call ESFJ household Hitler and ENFJ actual Hitler. So, how would an ESFP react to a debate? You don't know me. Words don't matter. You can't keep me in your little box. You know, my feelings are so powerful and your words mean nothing. Things like that. I've had ESFP student for a while that I worked with, and I kept trying to, I eventually had to stop working with them because I was explaining to the mother, look, your child is not cut out for debate. This is not going to work. And I explained, kid's ESFP, he's TI polar. You need to let him go run around and play. You need to stop trying to force him to not be TI polar. It's not going to work. What if someone's recalling of memories and details used to be amazing, but now it's shit because of drugs or stress? Does that affect the SI test or whether? No, it doesn't affect the SI test because the thing is, like having SI means a lot of different things. It doesn't just mean recalling details. It means it's like, for me, it's critically important as an SI person to try things out a lot before I draw conclusions about them sometimes, or to understand things, I need to have an example. So, well, here's an example of an SI frame of reference, and not particularly strong SI, right? Rachel told me before I got with her that she was bipolar, that she had a mental illness. And I said, oh, okay, well, whatever. I mean, So why did I have that response? Well, because I'd never experienced it before. So I'd heard about it, or read about it, or thought I understood what it meant, but I couldn't or didn't try to envision what that would be like from an experiential end on my end. And I had no idea what it meant until until I actually saw what it was, Then I was like, oh, this is actually a big deal. And it may be the case that had I been an NI person, I would have considered that a deal breaker. How do you know if you FI value a cognitive function, for example, TI, or if you actually have it? Okay, so you don't FI value a cognitive function. You can value a cognitive function as an absolute value or an instrumental value. I think what you mean by FI value is as an absolute value. So, and also valuing and having as a primary factor in your function stack or whatever are different matters. So I actually have an instrumental value for TI, not an absolute value. It's only valuable in that it helps me to meow me or meow. What's the video going to be about? Oh, I messed up the recording of it, so I don't have a video. I didn't have my mic set on properly, so it was just a bunch of silence. Yep, good old TE bites again. What does it mean to be a double knower, double interfacer, etc.? What I'm talking about there is basically what displays in the world. So your third and your sixth are going to display like you do both. In other words, I do both interface types. It's going to appear to other people that I'm effective at FE and TE in my engagements with the world. In reality, though, being a double knower means countervaluing one of those kinds of knowing. And how much you countervalue it depends sort of on how it relates to the fields that your dominant function engages most natively with. So, like, my position is that INTPs countervalue NI, or used to be, that they countervalue it less than ENTPs countervalue TE. But I've actually come to see that, in fact, they countervalue just as much, really. It's just a matter of the distinction being whether it's realized in their own life or delivered to other people. So they're double knowers from other people's perspectives. Other people are going to hear a lot of NI from INTPs as well as SI stuff. But the fact is, NI, the NI countervaluing is a critical part of the SE polar. Part of the reason why they can never pull the trigger on anything is because they don't like having a singular, clear path. That means deliberation time is over. That means ideation time is over. What's TWFP? Talking with famous people. Who is an ENTP, though? Maybe that could indicate myself as INTJ. So Tony Stark is a silly character if you were to try to say that that he's an ENTP, because ENTPs don't have that good a TE. Okay, you know what's coming, right, you guys? Because I'm almost an hour into this. I'm sorry it took this long. I have got to poop. Yep. Poop's a coming. Morning poop time. I'm going to put on a little bit of music, and then I'll be back after I'm done pooping. Or if Rachel would like to chat with you, I don't know if she's in the mood to or not right now. She can take over right here and put this here.
The poops is coming. It's a good thing.
It is a good thing. I always feel a lot better after I pooped.
Oh, good.
And I feel like my colon has the itis before I poop.
Yeah. Hi, PNP. Oh, PNP. Hi, guys. How's everyone doing? Is everyone getting ready for the holidays? I know I am not really. Eric and I were supposed to go to the desert for Christmas, but it was canceled because of COVID. So I don't know what we're doing. I'm guessing we're going to have something small here. You're welcome, Clayton Macrook. I will follow as many people as I can who follow in the live chat. My phone is currently on its last legs, so I haven't been checking up as much. But for anyone who is on Instagram, I'm on Instagram. Come find me. You can type in Rachel Christine Lapalosa or Rachel Lapalosa, and I'll come up. I'm doing well. I slept well last night. I got a lot of sleep last night, actually. So, and there were no interruptions, so that was nice. Thank you, Clayton McGorrick. Eric is infamous for mispronouncing names and then just like sticking with it. Why do people ask me how I don't feel lonely? They think that's not possible, but I've been for years shaking my head. Razor M. I don't know why. Sometimes people, in order to feel like they can relate to others, they feel that in order to relate, their habits of living must relate to. So when you tell people, for instance, that you haven't been, with someone, or even you could just be in like a hermit mode, where you just feel like being more, they project them, exactly. Where you're feeling more like, I want to stay inside and work on my stuff. People are going to be like, wait, I have this, and that. I do this, and that, and that's not relatable. So they're going to project, and then they're going to assume that you are different for them because you don't, you are fine with being alone. And maybe they're not. Danny and you are sure that you are introverted in the MBTI meaning of the word. What about your preference for taking action? Are you flexible and spontaneous, or planner and need an appointment? Daddy C says, at Winston's mom, I'm not convinced I'm an introvert. I need a lot of true connection, but superficial conversation kills me. I need plans and appointments to avoid chaos. I do take quick action, though. Could be INTJ, Winston's mom, if it sounds like you. Anton Munter says, when I meet a new person, I can quickly see how well I and said person are going to work together, and if it's worth our time to start a relationship or friendship. Is this an I? I'd say yes. I think it's a trait that's definitely an I. It's a trait that a lot of I dominance. It's like a double-edged sword, kind of, because we're knowing types. First, it's like we can size up in a person or a situation in which it wouldn't work out. Like, in my past, I had this friend and for 2 years, she lied about her age to me. And I threw my NI off because she lied about her age. So it was, in my mind, for 2 years, I didn't know this person. Like, I knew a part of her, but I didn't know the whole thing. So, yeah. And I definitely quickly sums up whether you can see a person who's worth your time or not.
Thanks, Darla.
You're welcome.
Oh, my Rachel Lapalosa. I glove you with my heart.
Oh, I glove you with mine. Thank you, host Darren. Can I kiss you? Mm-hmm.
Anton Munter says, when I meet a new person, I can quickly see how well I and said person are going to work together, and if it's worth our time to start a relationship. Is this NI? Yeah. It's could be, he said, to be FI as well.
True.
Because I will say this, as far as FI goes, when I dated, whatever you want to call that, an INFP, she predicted how the thing was going to end at the beginning of it.
Did she really?
Yeah. And
What did she say?
She said, you're going to get impatient and insist that something happened before I'm ready, and that's how it's going to end. And
That's exactly how it
and she
ended.
was right. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's an FI thing. It's from an INFP. And
Peter.
I think it's also a supervisor thing. She could clearly see where my blind spot was in a way that I couldn't see where my blind spot was, you know? Hi, Abraham. Not a whole lot is sup. It's not nice when it's always the start of the month. I was just thinking about that last night and this morning. You know, I got up after a good amount of sleep, good 8 hours of sleep or whatever.
Nice.
And I was still tired. And I guess you could say I felt like, do I want to try to go back to bed, or am I up at this point? I could tell I was probably up. I'd already gone back to bed once, so I got up, took my Addies, and now I'm in sort of this not very good place really to be, which is it's like I'm not thwacked out, which is nice in some sense, but I'm also accordingly garnering reduced benefits. Nevertheless, I still seem to be doing a lot more than I would otherwise. So I don't know. It's a tough calculus. I like sleepy week. Sleepy week's important. Last month, sleepy week got messed up, and it wasn't a good thing. Any links for a superior Enneagram test? I mean, look, this is the thing about Enneagram. I think Enneagram can be tested really straightforward. You just give them the 3 choices for the 3 things. And all right, so like, I don't know if Mackenzie's still here or not, but she probably has never heard my Enneagram test. But I'll give the Enneagram test right now to everybody. If you can take it at home as you're watching. Test question 1: how do you avoid shame? Is it, in other words, why when you are not ashamed of yourself, or when you need to demonstrate that you shouldn't be ashamed of yourself, or when you whatever, how do you defend against shame? Is it by being helpful, by achieving on conventional metrics like being successful, or is it by saying, fuck you, I don't need your rules, I'm taking my ball and going home? Answer step 1: don't be a shame monkey. It's a good point. 3. So you're going to get either. So if it's helpful, your number is 2. If it's achievement, your number is 3. If it's my way, I'm a rebel kind of thing, then it's 4. Now, your second question is this: what do you do with fear? So when, let's say you've got a looming thing you've got to deal with that you're intimidated by or whatever, do you try to understand it in full better, like so that you won't be afraid of it? Do you retreat to the safety of your castle, which is to say sort of nest up and tend to those things you can control? Or do you put your head in the sand and keep playing? Fiddle while Rome burns. And if in fact you try to learn everything about it, you're 5. If you retreat to the castle, you're 6. And if you stick your head in the sand and go, no, I'm not afraid, I don't know anything about that, I'm just not going to look over there, the big monster, then you're 7. Like me. Well, retreating to your castle is, I'm scared, so I'm going to go bolster my defenses.
That's 5, right?
That's 6.
Oh,
5 is, I'm scared, so I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna tackle this directly and become unscared of it by TIing or potentially FIing, by coming to a conclusion about it.
I find that 5s are best at compartmentalizing things in their life, and that's another part of their fear. It's like, if fives have control, say like they're closest to their family, that like as long as they have like they know what's going on in their family, they know their part within the family, they could feel comfortable. But like if anything changes within that system, it could be very jarring. Change, you know.
Right. So the thing about Enneagram is it's each of them is represents either withdraw, confront, or avoid. All right, so a comment on the second McKinsey video. Is that what you're saying? Let me find that video. All right, typing session, McKenna, comment, Rain. Okay, so you were assuming that someone needed to observe the tree fall down in order to report the situation, i.e. ask the question. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so no, you're actually wrong about this. And the reason is because any statement can be rendered into the exact same statement by simply saying it is observed that. So just as any statement has on the illocutionary plane, I believe that. So there are implicits, right? To say that, to be able to use logic at all, we say premise one, blah. What we're saying is it is observed that meow. Let's posit it is observed that meow. To say that we can communicate without observation, or that we can communicate about that which is unobserved, is to deny the fact that there has to be a source of the communication to begin with. So, in other words, I can say it is observed that a tree falls in the forest. And it is observed that no one was around to hear it. And that would not be changing the meaning of the sentences at all, right? But the problem is, I therefore reveal the contradiction. That we're assuming that that there's it is not the case that I'm begging the question. To be begging the question, it would have to be like this. If a tree falls in the forest, and no one's around, it doesn't make a sound. This is not the case because okay, well, here's an example of begging the question. Begging the question is like, alcoholics can never stop drinking or learn to drink moderately. Well, my dad's an alcoholic, and he never learned to drink moderately. I mean, he learned to drink moderately. And they go, well, he must not have been a real alcoholic then. So what you're saying is this is equivalent in that I'm saying, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it make a sound, I'm saying, well, then, if it fell, they must have really been around to hear it make a sound. That's different because of the reasons I articulated. It's like in the first instance, we're trying to define what an alcoholic is. In the second instance, we're trying to reveal something about the nature of observation. So if you're saying, pretend that something's unobserved, does it make a sound? The other problem with that expression is, presumably, the falling of the tree is a subject, but not an agent. So to say that it makes sound is to simply say that it's functioning as a subject in the world. But and then the point of that question is to reveal that without agency, there's no meaningful articulation of events that cause sensory reporting to occur. But of course, without sensory reporting, we can't even posit about the event in the first place. But what if the observer still doesn't have a sense of hearing? Well, because it's still a contradiction, because it doesn't say, what if a tree falls in the forest and a deaf person is nearby? Does it make a sound? That would be a different question. And the answer would be yes. And in fact, the person who couldn't hear could still feel the vibrations from it falling. And the person who would be there to observe it would be aware that sound exists, and therefore, quantumly allow that to occur. But it's really interesting. I was reading this article the other night about quantum mechanics and determinism, and the fundamental question of whether or not things will ultimately, if there's behind the quantum curtain a fundamentally deterministic reality. And let me see if I can find that article again, because it was really interesting. It was in Quanta, I think. Quanta magazine is great. I really like that magazine. So I would like to recommend this magazine to everybody who thinks interesting things are interesting. I mean, my warrant is, how do we know that the tree fell? That's my warrant. You say, if a tree falls in the forest, that means we have one statement: a tree falls in the forest. We need to determine the truth or falsehood of that. I'm saying, you've given me a statement about which apparently it's not possible to determine the truth or falsehood of it. So in order to be a meaningful statement, it has to at least have the ability to attain no truth value. But that statement doesn't seem to even be able to make it out of the starting gate yet. Because in the antecedent, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to make us to be there to hear it, then it doesn't make a sound. The second premise, and no one's around there to hear it or to see it fall, says, okay, so, but I thought we already established that we knew that it fell. That, I believe it is so. I know that this tree has fallen in the forest. You just told me we know that. But then in the second premise, you told me there's no way we know that. There's no possible way to know that. So I don't understand, I mean, the thing is, Rain, the important question here is not whether or not it makes a sound, but whether or not it is observed at all. In other words, whether or not that which is so you're saying the aliens reporting that the tree fell, but not that it made a sound, because the alien was unable to observe sound. But we know that sound occurs. So now that it's been observed, the answer is yes. And then that's fine. There's no contradiction. But it also doesn't tell us anything. It just says yes. The answer is yes. If a tree falls in the forest and an alien reports the tree has fallen in the forest and that alien cannot hear noise, does the tree make a sound? Yes. Very simple. It's not a very interesting question at that point, right? Sean, some of the things you say. Sean offers this wisdom. Everything that we call sound is sound silence. There is no such thing as pure sound. You couldn't hear it. Well, the only way to get around the contradiction is to add an observer. So I would suggest that, in fact, you've just established that, yes, an observer is necessary. That's true. A person who doesn't hear intervals is tone deaf. I had a friend who's tone deaf, and my tone deaf friend actually became a really good classical guitarist despite being tone deaf. You ask a Zen question, you get a Zen answer. Fair enough, Sean. Fair the fuck enough. Good point. Good point. Sound is how agency renders frequency into delight. If you ask a Zen question and get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich as a response, then you are studying at the Wonder Bread School of Zen. What happened while you were gone? Everything important. Everything important happens while you're not here. And then when you get here, we just segue into the unimportant things. What I'm saying is that music ultimately is how people make the realities of wave functions rather than particle functions into delight. You know, it's like, hey, things can behave as either a wave or a particle. What things? Well, light. Okay, well, can other things behave as wave or particle? Well, they're usually one or the other, Eric. Okay, well, what about the wave things? That sounds fun. Those are fun. Those waves. Those are called frequency waves. And they are the things that allow music to occur. The big box, yes, it's right here. I haven't opened it yet. I figure when I do, could open it now, but maybe we'll open it in a live stream later. I need to eat something, probably. I'm feeling a little unsettled. Yeah, right now it's still Schrodinger's box. It would become Schrodinger's box, Razor M, if Winston's mom and everybody involved with the packing and shipping of this thing, plus all records of it having packed and shipped, were to disappear. Then it would truly be that. Maybe there's something in the box to eat. I don't want to open it when Rachel's not here. You want me to open it right now? I got you something to eat right here, lady. I got you something to eat right here. Okay, what is this? One of these delicious little Hostess coffee cakes. I'm glad the Hostess brand survived its various upheavals. You know, the Hostess brand was dead and gone for a while, but it's come back. And we have Twinkies again. I mean, can you imagine a world where there aren't any more Twinkies? Oh, look, it's a live ferret. Just what I wanted. Well, I mean, they did die briefly, Genexial. It's just that there's too much value in the brand name, so some other corporation ended up picking it up and producing the things. But the Hostess Corporation was hopelessly bankrupt by the time it died. They were so in debt, and apparently the market for things like this is going down. I tell you what, Danny C, humanity would be a lot healthier if everybody minded their own diet business, because it causes a lot of stress. Like, it makes me really angry when people presume to know what other people should eat, and that raises my blood pressure, causing me to die sooner. So please don't have an opinion about what other people should eat. I mean, it's not all BS. That's for sure, Zennial. Because, I mean, except for Amazon and fast food restaurants and supermarkets, who's not struggling right now?
Yeah.
How well do you think a YouTube channel that was exclusively about Pogs would do in this post-Pog era? Is there still room for a billion sub channel about Pogs in the media landscape?
This is a good question.
You should experience having a son with anorexia, and every mom has an opinion. My son's anorexia is physical, not 16-year-old girl version, but he did get to hang out with them and draw a butt pic. Danny C, again, the problem here is you presume that caring about my diet means what you want it to mean. That for me to care about my diet means what you want it to mean. Except you don't know what my body is, what it needs, what foods are good for me. So my point is, it doesn't matter what I eat, as long as I eat enough fat and grease and shit like that to be say energized. I can't put on weight. I have a very high metabolism. The idea that I'm being selfish because I have a child and I'm not caring about my diet, or that I'm being selfish. No, you are. See, that's the problem, Danny C. You think you aren't, but you are talking directly to me. You are saying to me when you make these general statements, Eric, you are wicked for not caring about your diet. Eric, you are wicked for smoking cigarettes. Eric, you and your decisions are a matter of communitarian control and concern, not of individual control and concern. And that's where evil arises from. So I try to stop that evil and try to shut that shit down whenever I hear it, because it's like, I know you don't want to be evil, and you probably don't even recognize you are being evil. Because that kind of communitarian perspective on things is why, pretty soon you're going to have laws telling you what you have to eat all the time. The idea that we can know how we can pass judgment on other people based on their SI choices is wrong. It's morally wrong. I was married to a fat woman for a while, and I can tell you that the problems associated with body image stuff are much bigger than the health problems associated with stuff like that. And for people who want to talk about diet, there's an implicit normalization of it, right? It says it is immoral to be fat. I mean, my daughter's 22 now, so whatever. You're not like I got a little kid.
Now
It's fine, Danny C. I'm not actually offended per se. This is my response to this. This is the response I make. And being bipolar means that I always display emotions when I'm talking.
I found this to be so funny, especially since that's the only coffee that's like available in the garage right now. It's like, I feel like our comments don't really matter.
Oh, why we said we didn't like it?
Yeah.
No, well, he
Not that
gets.
we said we didn't like it, that it was strong.
He gets whatever's on sale.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is, having been with a fat woman, I can tell you that they suffer plenty of ontological attack from all different angles. And that, in recent years, the last 10 or 15 years, it's been, the angle has been to pathologize it, to say, no. We're not saying you're bad because you're not attractive. We're saying you're bad because you're unhealthy. Well, I mean, that's not better. So it's like, it's kind of a similar thing. I take an approach to transgenderism. It is conceivable that you could make the argument that transgenderism is a form of body dysmorphia, that it's not something to encourage or whatever. My point is, those people are obviously not getting that stuff done because they've gotten a lot of encouragement about it. The vast majority of the reaction to them doing this is going to be negative. They're going to face a fair amount of heat from the world, and they're going to be controversial. As it is, there's in a society that's going to offer them a lot of ontological assault, and so I tend to err on the side of let's value the individual highly. Dude, you just pointed out that I'm basically a sheep following the global agenda by exposing their statements, which I believe. Well, that's true. See, I don't feel bad about that. That's why I'm not asking you to feel bad about anything. Like, don't be like, I'm sorry, you're right, I was talking to you. My point is, we are in disagreement about this, and that you are wrong. And if it hurts your feelings, that's okay. That's how I roll. But it's like, I get it. I don't want to have I don't like things to get. I don't like it when things around here get too fighty. And things around here get more fighty than they do probably any other live stream. This
HD camera does wonders for your skin. And you got sleep, right?
Yeah, I did get sleep. Danny's not getting out of hand. Razor. This is a very cordial and civil live stream this morning. Usually there's a lot more, well, I guess Cloud's not here. We get our share of provocateurs. I just see that there's a lot of stuff where people seem to want to meddle in everybody else's business, and I don't like meddling. I don't think the government should meddle, that's for sure. The grass is dead. Ronnie Fox was here earlier. She might still be here. Okay, I guess I'm going to open up the, what's it called? The Poop Factory, the Discord thing, and go on to the voice thing. If anybody would like to speak to me with their voice.
Fun.
Yeah, Danny, I don't think Razor was serious. We're all good. It's all good. I have had plenty of very heated arguments with people, and generally don't even remember having had it the next day. But basically, it's like I don't One experience I've had around here a lot is that I'll have some sort of battle with somebody, and then I'll get an email from them or whatever, or some sort of indication that they think there's bad blood between us. And of course, it's just every day for me. It's like I fight with somebody about something. I don't hold any grudges. I assume that we're still boys the next day. This Cloud is not an STP. Cloud is as ESFP as you can possibly get. He's a less damaged version of Marty. I don't think so, Genexial. Because it's like at the end of the day, he only ever goes to down one step down an argumentation chain. And that's not the case with STPs. So it's like if I say A and he says B, and then I go not B, he'll say C. I'll go not C, he'll say D. He won't say not C or not B. I mean, that's textbook ESFP. Look at Marty. Marty's an ESFP, and since he's an INFJ, that has a channel talking about how he's an INFJ and how INFJs are. Look at Brittany. She insisted she was an ENTP for a long ass time. She's ESFP, obviously. And eventually I had this moment of I thought I'd be gracious and just say, Brittany's going through enough shit. She doesn't need any shit from the internet from me, I'm sure. So, you know what, Brittany, from this point forward, you are an ENTP. That's fine. I'm not going to dispute it at all. You can make that claim. I'm not going to, if somebody asks me about it, I'm just going to say, I have no opinion about it. Just let it slide. I'm no longer going to challenge your claim that you're an ENTP. So what happened? Almost immediately thereafter, after years of insisting she was an ENTP, she came back and informed me she was now an INTP. And that was the moment when I said, okay, there is no point in talking to ESFPs any longer. Are Cloud's an INTJ? Uh-huh. No, he's not. INTJs can be difficult to communicate with too. I think OOOO is an INTJ. And there are times when I'm like asking him questions and he's not understanding exactly what I'm asking, but it's very clear, in my opinion, what I'm asking. And I just think, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Why can't he understand what I am asking him? And so in that regard, sometimes INTJs can seem like ESFPs and they're not answering your questions. Except he does have an answer, and I can continue to try to peel it out of him, and eventually he provides the answer that I'm looking for. He just doesn't understand my question. He misinterprets my question. Cloud doesn't have any answers. His answers are always the same. Talk is cheap. Words don't matter. My shitty fourth slot NI is all that matters. Remember, when you say Cloud thinks blah, 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 Cloud thinks A, not A, B, not B, C, not C, D, not D, E, and not E about that matter. What type does Cloud think he is? It depends on the day or the time that you ask him. He doesn't think he's an ESTP. Sometimes he might say that. Sometimes he might say he's an ENTJ. Sometimes he might say he's an INTJ. He doesn't think anything. He doesn't have any opinions about anything. He just has the capacity to provoke. his way of engaging with people around here is to find out what statements they affirm and then say the opposite. Which is like just infuriating, obviously, if you think words are useful for doing things rather than for just making noise. All right, there. Now I'm ending, yeah. Copy this. Put this here. If you would like to speak with your voice, if you have something to say.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Pretty sharp, I suppose.
Pretty sharp, you say? Does that mean that you are dressed sharp? I don't see you, obviously. So,
I mean, I'm here.
Do you have a tuxedo on though? Because I expect you to be
to the Zen answer to the Zen question.
Oh, I do expect when I talk to somebody on Discord voice for them to be wearing a tuxedo. There's a dress code for other people, not for me. So please, if you are going to join me in the Discord voice chat, please do put on a tuxedo first so that you sound more fancy. Can't type a troll because their interactions are disingenuous. Yeah, well, and that's the thing is I don't think Cloud thinks his interactions are disingenuous. I think Cloud doesn't understand that he doesn't apply words in that fashion. It's not like he thinks that he's having a conversation with you and what he says is just a way to make you have an emotional response. He's not really trolling. It's just he doesn't know any other way to interact about ideas like this because he's TI polar, he's NI fourth, and that makes it challenging for anybody to have ideas that are going to be communicatively sustainable. Like, for him, a good idea is that which links to something sort of concrete in his life. So you hear him go through a bunch of different random things like, well, now I'm into fasting. Well, now I'm into no fap. Well, now I'm into mega fap. Well, now I'm into, gorging. Now I'm into sitting Zen. Now I'm into Christian prayer. Now I'm into it's all these doing things that he wants to he wants his philosophy to direct him in his doing. And so, if you're looking for a physical confirmation of a philosophy, you're never going to find it because that's not how it works. In other words, it is not a good idea to fast. It might not be a bad idea. It might be a fine thing to do, but no, there's no like that's how we solve all of our misunderstanding about the world.
Which is funny because that's how.
And no fap is just dumb. No fap means I want to maximize my prostate problems when I'm older. I mean, it's just stupid, right?
It's funny because a lot of religions use fasting as like a way to become closer to the religion.
Yeah, a lot of religions do, and
do you remember that show Loveline that was on MTV?
Yeah, with Dr. Drew.
Someone called Dr. Drew and asked about the no-fap thing or whatever, because like it was a boxer for a fight type thing. And he told him actually that could reduce your testosterone. So you needed to just be normal.
Right. But Cloud's not a bad person, okay? I don't think Cloud's a troll. I just think that Cloud's way of being and way of interacting is he's going to, he's getting increasingly frustrated by the place because he doesn't really have ways to engage on the ideas that a lot of people here do. And he's finding that there's less willingness to be reactive to his provocations, and then he gets very frustrated and goes. It's, there's enough going on around here that he'll keep coming back, I'm sure, and finding new takers for his bait.
Maybe it's recreational outrage. He needs to find someone to get support, to get a foothold, and then make two teams, and then like lead the one team to crush the other two. So
it's recreational triggering, I guess would be an even better way to put it. But normally recreational triggering would be a synonym for trolling, and I don't think that's exactly what Cloud's doing. I think that, like a lot of ESFPs, he struggles a great deal with meanings, and that's just how it goes. It's like when I was chatting with the homie. This is what I want to say about that chat with texting with Samuel last night. He said something about intuition. I said, I think introverted intuition is just knowing what stuff means. Is the best definition of it.
I always thought it was, but
I think you look at my dad. He's so smart. He understands so many things, but he really struggles when it comes to knowing what something means. And it's like, so right now, I think my dad is had a moment of good NITE, I guess, when he's concluded that he thinks the stock market's going to crash again, and he's divesting from stocks largely, or not largely, not. I mean, he's divested a substantial amount from stocks. Now the thing is, he might be right, but my argument is, all right, when it crashed at the beginning of COVID, and it's come back and it's even stronger now than it was before. And presumably, our portfolio was at an all-time high, and so he divested some. His reasoning is eventually the market's going to come to its senses and realize the damage to the economy, and it's going to crash again. That's a sensible notion, except the reason why I think it came back is the same reason why I have my skepticism about whether it's going to crash again. It's where people put their money for long-term investments. And so as a consequence, because there is so long a display of data too, showing that people who invest in stocks and hold them for the long term, Genexial, just remove the only and put an exclamation point after that sentence, and it plays totally differently. It's like, yes, 50% of working Americans have money in the market. So that's why it's kind of hard for it to crash. It's like most people who are professionals have some sort of retirement plan that has some sort of involvement in the market. I mean, well, it's not the same, Genexial, because by saying only 50% of working Americans have money in the market, that's an argument against, presumably, me saying that that's where people put their money, so that's why it's not going to crash. But I don't think that as a stat that serves your end of things well. I think it serves my end of things much more well. If it only had 10% of people in the market, then that's a different matter. Because of the long-term perspective that people have about the stock market as well. So in other words, because it's proved to be a continual good idea to invest in the stock market since 1930 until now, over the long haul, it's there's always going to be plenty of support for the argument. Don't be a panicker. Don't take losses. Hold on for the market to go up again. Buy when things are low. there's always going to be this notion that this is an opportunity to profit. And because of that, and because the long-term validation of that over the course of decades and decades and decades, the market has a resiliency that increasingly decouples it from the actual health of the economy. But but again, this is the exception. When I say my dad doesn't know what stuff means, this is the exception. When we're talking to the Gen Zenny, I'll address that in a second. This is a fun kind of thing to talk about, that argument right there, because it's a silly argument, but I'll explain it in a second. Okay, Gen Axial says 29% of people own more than half of our wealth. That's the same number when the French Revolution happened. Of course, in the French Revolution, the 71% who didn't own much were starving to death. They didn't have bread. They didn't have the capacity to feed their children. Where all the aristocrats were living in these palaces with Okay, but listen to me. But hear what I have to say. First of all, the fact is that the people who have the wealth are not the same people who have the political power. So, in other words, who's not rich? Trump. Who's not rich? You know, most politicians are not particularly rich. Obama's not particularly rich. And so, I mean, the thing is, there's a logic to a revolution when you've got an autocratic governing body that is structuring things so that markets are not fair, and so that only through connections and nepotism and so forth can you attain anything. But it's not, Genzennial. It's not a plutocracy oligarchy. It's what we call a representative democracy. And it's clearly not a plutocracy or an oligarchy, because you can tell that obviously by the diversity of people that we have who run for office and attain office and stuff. Look, I don't like statements about the way that things are that preclude any real solvency in the status quo. You know, it's like it's very easy to become demoralized and say, we're never going to accomplish things through legitimate and conventional channels. But I think that that's defeatist and potentially revolutionary in a bad way, you know? So I still believe in the institutions of democracy as we have them here, whatever you want to call it. People fuss over this name a lot for no reason. Whether you want to call it constitutional republic, a representative democracy, or whatever, it doesn't matter. We know what we're talking about. We're talking about something that aspires to and asserts that it is some form of self-governance. Now, in the United States, the reality is we've got quite a bit of self-governance, as everybody can tell at their local level. If you're living in a town or a city in the United States, you will see signs on people's lawns for Joe Smith for city council, Joe Smith for school board, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like you can see the democratic process at the local level, no problem. Nobody disputes it. Nobody says that school board election is rigged. Some of them be. That doesn't mean it never happens. It just means that the less centralized a given thing is, the less likely it is to be gamed. And national elections are about as decentralized a thing as you can get in the United States. There is national elections comprise a plethora of different localities, each implementing their own voting protocols. So the idea that our national elections are fixed or rigged or gamed, or that this is all pre-decided or something, or there's a big conspiracy, it defies any understanding of system dynamics, any real understanding of system dynamics. Now, it is possible or conceivable that you can steal an election by having hacking into voting machines in key battleground states and stealing the election by stealing just a small number of electoral college votes in a very close election. That's possible. So, and I am absolutely not saying that we shouldn't make sure that doesn't happen, or that we don't have a duty to be vigilant about preserving the integrity of our electoral processes and preserving the integrity of our democratic processes in general. So I do think that that's the case, but I think we're not doing anybody a good service when we are overwrought in our critiques either. So it's like, by and large, in the United States, almost all voting is legit. Almost all outcomes are legit. I am skeptical of voting machines. I don't like that idea of having electronic voting machines, because we should have a physical ballot. I think we want this process to link both to representative objects that are physical objects and representative objects that are metaphysical objects. Doing electronic voting means let's eliminate the physical link component to this, because it's unnecessary. In my opinion, it's necessary.
Hey, Eric, you want to try this out?
Sure. Try what out?
It's in the text channel. I kind of accidentally discovered this because I was just trying to see, my SI or whatever, if I could feel anything from doing this, and then I didn't feel shit. But then when I turned it off, I was like, whoa. And then I've tried it a few more times, and it's been consistent. And now there's 2 people now that have confirmed it.
So it's in the voice text, you say?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
8 hertz infrasound create a physical sense of terror, horror, or fear.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think I hear anything.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to keep letting it roll here and see. And then I'm going to stop it in a little while and see what happens. Okay, while I continue talking.
Yeah, right
on. If it was a democracy, California and New York would control all the states in between, meaning the rest of the states would have no voice in what's going to happen. I mean, the thing is, the United States of America is supposed to be, or it was originally envisioned as these United States of America, not the United States of America. The transition from these to the represents a fundamental shift in our understanding of what the United States of America is and represents. And it's a post-Civil War shift that it's a post-Civil War shift that that sort of came about necessarily from the realities of the Civil War, which is we determined that, in fact, we were not a confederation of equal states. If we were, in fact, a confederation of equal states, then they would have been able to secede. And since they were not allowed to secede, then we obviously are not a confederation of equal states, but rather a single union whose interests take priority over those individual members, over any block within the federation. So it's not really a federation anymore, right? It's more like a. Let me stop this thing now. I have to see if I think I do hear something.
Oh wow, I felt it. That's weird. God.
I don't know. I don't.
It must have been coming through from your.
I don't think anything. I don't get anything from it. But that's fine. Who knows? My ears are not as good as they used to be. I've noticed that, like when I took that hearing test on that one site that had high frequency hearing range, mine was not as high as I would have liked. It was around 16 or 17K. I'd like to be able to hear all the way into the 20s. I think I could when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure I could. I could hear very, very high pitched shit when I was a kid. So, what was I addressing here? Let me see. I mean, look, I've listened to a variety of those kind of things too, where they say, if you listen to this, this rhythm or this pulsing beat or something, it'll have this kind of impact on your mind or something like that. I just tend to find all those things.
Yeah, it's woo, like for real.
It's it's simply an attentional process. Like when I was a kid, I used to listen to like self-hypnosis tapes sometimes, things like that, or I just thought they were interesting and to teach you to meditate or perceive auras or something. And at some point, after I was into listening to those for a while, I realized I sort of figured out what it was, I guess. Like, okay, I get this. I am attending to this I'm iterating this attentional thing, which is to say I keep putting it back into the same thing, and then you get outcome in terms of like consciousness experience. So I felt as though I got the trick at a certain point. Like, oh, I see what they're doing. I see what they're taking advantage of in people's misconceptions, and then I just stopped listening to them.
Well, like this one in particular, it's just like when it's shut off, that's when I felt something. And I didn't feel anything that I was supposed to feel that it says it does. But kind of like the, if you just do the victory pose, like the cheerleader Y thing, you just do that for a moment and you smile real big, then it actually gives you a real effect in your body. Like you actually feel it's a positive vibe come out of that.
I'm exampling it right now.
Rachel's exampling it.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect victory pose. And see, after that, this will actually feel a little bit lifted, a little better.
All right, so let me show you what I thought that victory pose looked like that you were talking about. I didn't think it looked like that. Rachel chose this. This is what I thought it looked like.
It's a yoga.
Okay, can you go over here? Yeah. I thought you were talking about this one.
That's so high. That's so anime.
That or something, no? That's the anime victory pose.
I suppose it.
Yeah. I suppose so. Boy, I am really becoming more and more familiar with just sort of the sounds and feels of Japanese watching all these anime shows. And they've got a small vocabulary.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Come on, man.
I mean,
there's no real points to anything. It rolls off the tongue. There's a lot of O's and R's that are L's.
A lot of vowels, obviously. Yeah, a lot of vowels.
Okay,
But
so the way to do a Japanese R, the best way I've taught foreigners to do it is like you make a D sound, right? So you can say like da da or whatever. Just make a D sound. And the way to make a Japanese R is exactly like that, except you don't let the tip of your tongue touch the roof of your mouth.
Wow.
And then you get the Japanese R, like ramen.
deep purple.
Ramen.
So that's why with the U, it sounds like a lu, and then why with an A, it sounds like more of an R.
Yeah.
Ra,
Yeah.
ru, re, ro. It's like that because it's exactly the same as making the D sound, but you don't let your tongue touch the roof of your mouth.
Oh.
You know, one thing I've learned from Japan is that it's very important for me to have a rival.
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 You do it so good. See, like, I think I am one of those people who was born without being able to roll the R's because, like, me trying to do it, people laugh so hard because they're like, "What is wrong with you?" But I like can't do it.
Wada, deep purple.
So I think I'd be lost in translation in Japan. Japan would be really. I mean, I don't mind going there, but like I kind of feel like how you do about Ireland. Like in Japan, I feel like I'd be so lost in translation that it would be very hard for me to have a fun time. Yeah.
I think that they say, when I say they have a small vocabulary, what I mean is I'll hear them say the same word, but on the subtitles it'll say different things. Like it'll give more nuance. So they'll say hi in a certain way, and it'll just mean yes sir, and they'll say hi in another way, and it'll mean something like that.
It's almost like and also but.
Well, that's the thing. Like people like have a endocentric or ectocentric view, depending, and people think that like "sí" in Spanish means yes, but it doesn't mean yes. It means "sí." Like it means like it's a really different feel than the American word "yes," and it implies like understanding and like copaceticness. Like it's very different than just our yes, like correct.
So that's why you have to say it like this. You say "oh sí."
Well, it's like, or you could say like "no see," and that means I don't understand.
Well, that's no say. That's no say.
Yeah, no say.
Okay.
But if you're gonna be speaking Spanish, you need to talk like this so that people know what you mean. Say, "Oh sí, señor. You can have another one of my burritos."
You did so good.
Like that. Okay.
He's been around a lot of Mexicans, so he can say so.
Would you like to ride on my burro? It's something you'll hear Mexicans say a lot. Now, it's true. I am an honorary Mexican. I was married to a full Mexican and a half Mexican. That means I've had 150% Mexican. Okay, so that's a lot. My daughter is a quarter Mexican, and I, of course, am Mexican periodically. In my fluidly transracial wanderings, I am occasionally Mexican. But I always got along well with the Mexicans because they're like, yeah, fuck that noise. It's like they know when not to take shit too seriously.
Yeah, they do.
They know when it's just time for tequila and tacos and sit on the front yard. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
or you die. Oh, the Doyers are on. You want to put the Doyers on the TV? You're having another Budweiser.
I remember at one time I lived in a very Spanish area, and they would have the front yard parties, and I was always like, these people know how to live. Like they're out in their front yards, like having a party. Like hell yeah! Like I would rather be there than sitting on the couch here, like doing nothing. That sounds fun.
Mexico is chock full of Esfjs and Esfps. It's a very SFJ country, which is very comfortable for an ENTP. It's in my quadra, like they're very much about food and family and familiarity, and it's just it may be a stereotype, but that's my experience. So
sometimes the stereotypes are true. I mean, they're stereotypes for a reason.
mm-hmm. My neighbor Johnny, his family too, it's like he's such an ESFJ. He ended up being a sheriff. What's the childish and immature bullying? Who's childish and immature bullying? Grass eater? Who's bullying whom? At Running Fox and at Diamond? They're bullying? That seems unlikely. I don't even see any shit that they said.
What's going on?
I don't know.
Leave for like a minute and.
Oh, like.
Do you know what sleeping type you are?
What sleeping type?
Yeah, there's like 6 chronotypes apparently, but like there used to, we only thought there were 2, the morning lark and the night owl, but now the research is saying that there's 6 different types.
Oh, really? So like an afternoon peacock?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a daytime type that is very alert middle of the day.
Okay, so I'm gonna declare it. I am the most energized from like 1 to 4.
Right.
But like after that and before that, I could be sleeping.
but there is a daytime sleepy type. And then I wonder if there was like genetic in España, like for them to take their siesta during the day, right? It's that's just what if a bunch of them are just the daytime sleepy type?
They absolutely could be, and I think I want to join them.
And like if you travel to like islands in the Caribbean and stuff, and just islanders, like they're just so lackadaisical that I think that they're all like the moderately active type. Like they don't know the alert rush mode.
Totally. You're anytime I would get into a cab with someone who was from Jamaica, they never understood. Yeah, they never understood. They were like, you have to go to Jamaica. Jamaica is beautiful. And they're like, oh, not, and they would say how there's no rush like this. Like, you take your time, you have your food, you have your dance, and, really just like not caring about anything except for fun. So yeah, you're right. I totally agree with you on that. About the Caribbean islands having a low activity level.
Can you read the 6 types to me out loud?
Yeah. The 6 types are the morning type, start off high energy, and then middle energy, and then low energy in the evening. And there's the evening type, which is the reverse. So low in the morning, high at night, and middle in the afternoon. There's the highly active type, which is just high energy all 3 times. There's the daytime sleepy type. So start off very high energy in the morning, very low energy in the afternoon, and pretty high energy.
That's me. That one's me.
And then there's the daytime type, who is like Rachel, and has about medium energy in the evenings, like no energy in the morning, and very high energy in the afternoon. And then there's the moderately active type, which is just pretty flat, low energy all the time.
Mm. Yeah, I'm that one that's energetic in the morning, sleepy in the afternoon, energetic in the evening.
Yeah.
I'm best served by taking long afternoon naps.
Yeah.
But I often don't. This is kind of a shame. I have trouble managing my meow. Where is there notifications? I want no more of those sounds. What is the thing that goes boom?
Oh, that's because your notifications.
Which one
Yeah,
is it?
that one. Messages.
I already have that one off. There must be something else that I'm getting. What? Oh, that's from Sean's end. Maybe I'm just hearing it from Sean's end. Maybe that's it. It's fine. I just didn't know. I thought it was me. So, okay. I am out of cigarettes. So I'm going to wrap this up now. It's been 2 hours and I'm going to go. I'll see you later.
Bye, guys.